The Travel Ball Show with Danny Smith coming up. We've experienced the first, Russ.
Talk to me.
It's the top of the hour, and we're on the air. It is 6 o'clock on the dot, and we are on the air. No 6:02, no 6:03, 6 o'clock straight up. We are on the air.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I wish you said that earlier. We should have stopped for a cocktail. But you got John Bennett and Russ McCubbins, your host tonight on the Travel Ball Show. Welcome. A lot of things going on, Russ. Tonight I want to talk about some things that I've been up to. Forget about you. It's more about me.
Oh, for sure. I'll try to keep you on, on task. Okay.
You do a good job of that. But last week, one of our sponsors, the American Baseball Coaches Association, had their annual coaches convention in Nashville, Tennessee. And Russ, you remember that scene in Dodgeball where they go out to Las Vegas and all the teams are prancing around? That's kind of what it felt like.
Somebody had the wrong uniforms?
No. they all had the right uniforms, and they would clump together and go from point A to point B, and they go in groups. But I usually go for the vendor hall, but there were so many coaches there from all levels. The ABCA does a phenomenal job of putting on a class event, and the speakers, everything about it is just top notch. But the vendor hall was what I went for and what I usually go for most. It was a lot of data, a lot of tech. I mean, gloves, bats, baseballs, what have you, are going to be there, but a lot of data and a lot of tech. And it tells me data continues to be a valuable asset to coaches. And if it's valuable to coaches, it's valuable to players too, right?
For sure. I mean, that night we had Jay Sorgon. We talked about what's the importance of tech, and he rattled off all the tech that he's got at his place. But at the same time, he said, hey, I'm still a hybrid kind of guy. I don't want to get too, married to only looking at numbers and metrics. I want to make sure that we're teaching these kids, how to actually be ball players at the same time, how to actually be a hitter, and don't just look at numbers.
And parents, if you're listening, there's value in technology, but it doesn't tell the entire story. You take a little bit of both, right?
For sure.
So the conference was phenomenal. Great job. Some good stuff. Baseball Cloud, they're a big deal. They own Yacker Tech, which is a camera system that ballparks you'll see around, but they're capturing all this data. And one of the takeaways that I found was we're morphing from Doppler technology, which is what the TrackMans and the Flight Scopes have, and they're moving into an optical technology. And what they were explaining is, sometimes we'll see YouTube clips or Twitter tweets of the autonomous strike zone, the robo-umps, where they're calling strikes that are over their head. They're not always that accurate. So with the optical technology, it's continuing to evolve, and we're real close. We're real close to robo-umps at higher levels. In the big leagues, if I'm not mistaken, this year, they tried it out in the fall league last year where they had 2 challenges. So you're going to see it up on the board where batters are going to protest and throw the flag on a pitch because they think it was something different. That's coming real soon. And that's just the first piece to robo-ump 24/7. But technology is going to get us there. So that was some cool stuff happening. Something else that happened this past week, last several days, was the Buffalo Bills player. We didn't talk about it last week on the show because it had just happened on Monday, and I had just gotten back from taking my son to school in Texas. But Damar Hamlin was released, and what a story that's been. Some good things I believe have come from that. The fact that he has been released from the hospital and communicating and fingers crossed and prayers sent that he's able to get back on the field. But if he doesn't, that's okay too, right?
Sure.
Just to be able to leave. But one of the things that I always find fascinating when you have situations like this, the good things that come from it, and there's been so many. For example, his foundation that had a goal of $2,500 to raise money for kids' toys. Last I saw was $9-10 million and continuing to improve. But on the game Sunday, the opening kickoff was ran back, and what an emotional time and a cool time, right? That's you can't write that stuff. It just happens. And in the press conference, Josh Allen, the quarterback, shared that it had been 3 years and 3 months since their last kickoff return. And, with the number 3 being relevant, given that's his number, I love hearing stories like that. I consider myself a religious guy, and you hear things like that in situations to where Tim Tebow goes out for the Broncos and wins a playoff game, and after the game's over, they're talking about some of the stats, and it's all pointing, biblical, right? And it's cool stuff. And there's a Reds pitcher not too long ago that his father passed away, and the next night he goes out and throws a no-hitter. Those are the good things that I love to hear more about. And I was telling you earlier, Russ, when my dad passed away, the first game back to Male High School, he was buried behind the high school field there. My son hits a double in the gap, right? First at bat, right towards Dad's grave, and those are the things that
they're stories that are compelling, right?
They really are.
People love to hear those. They hit home, they hit the heart, and no, it's really cool. And you can't write it; they just happen.
Yeah. So if you've got any good stories like that, please check us out on social, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Share some of those stories with us on the Travel Ball Show. Also on the PPL, the Pitching Performance Lab text line, if you'd like to chime in tonight, we're talking baseball, 502-437-9680, 502-437-9680. And Russ, I've talked too much tonight.
Oh, so it's my turn now? Is that what you're saying?
No, we're gonna open it up to our guest. It's our secret guest tonight, Mr. Danny Smith. Danny, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Last week we went down the theme of bringing a parent on board.
I was going to say, this is continuing down the theme.
We're continuing the theme, bringing parents on board that have experienced some travel ball situations that they may be able to lend to others, maybe help other parents and other players go down that path as well. So, Danny, tell us a little bit about yourself.
You are scraping the bottom of the
We're going to have fun, though. I can tell you that much right now.
I've been fortunate to have a son that loves baseball, plays baseball and football, and has really, I guess, taken the baseball into his own hands and run with it. So I've got to sit back the last few years and really just be a fan dad.
Be a fan dad. I love that. And, you touch on something there, Danny, taking the ball and run with it, right? So many times we see that, and when it clicks, when that youth athlete is going out and doing things on their own, and, you get to that point of stopping, hey, reminding them, you need to go do this, you need to go do that.
Get your swings in, whatever, get your reps in.
You find them doing it on their own, and that's a good feeling.
Yes.
He's a man of few words, folks. but when he speaks, you want to listen. And I'm going to give Danny credit. I've mentioned him a few times on this show. We talk recruiting a lot here on the Travel Ball Show. And one of the things that Danny has mentioned is the phrase, wherever you are is where you're meant to be. And, through the recruiting process, can you tell us a little bit more about that recruiting process that your son experienced? And he's a senior in high school now, and we're coming close to that journey being over and going into that next phase. But during that process, Danny, can you help us understand what that looked like, what that felt like from an emotional perspective?
It is a roller coaster. The kids put a lot on their shoulders and are putting a lot of pressure on themselves to perform when they get the opportunity in front of these coaches. And what we all know, baseball is a game of failure. So it really is. It's tough to go through with your kid. Because they're emotional, they're fiery, they're competitive, they run hot, and so it was a good time. I mean, I will say that there's really probably no other experience for me that I would have gotten to spend the kind of time that I got to spend with my son at 15, 16 years old, traveling all summer and doing the circuit that he decided he wanted to try and run after and do. And we were fortunate in that I could do a lot of it with him, thanks to his mother and everything that she does for the family. It really opened me up to be able to spend the summers with him, and it was I wouldn't do anything different.
A lot of folks talk about that quality time with their sons and daughters, right? When they're out there traveling, sometimes we lose perspective, right? And don't fully remember what we're doing. Sometimes we focus more so on, hey, how many, you went 0 for 3 today, or you went 2 for 3 today, the results of the game versus that 10-hour trip it took to get there, and some of the things you see and will remember off the field, right? The dinners, the hotels that may not be up to par, right?
The behind the scenes things, like I think you mentioned this once, it's not necessarily about the results, it's about the process to get us there, Yeah, I agree with that.
So parents, if you're listening, sometimes it's hard to take that step back, and I'm speaking from my perspective. I've done this before. Sometimes we forget, and I think we get so wrapped up in hoping our kids are successful out on the field sometimes that we sometimes forget for them to be out there in general is a win in itself, right? Just play ball, have fun, play ball. And so, yeah, not to get too sappy, but that's good stuff. So Danny, going through that recruiting process, what are some things that you feel other parents might find valuable to give their kids some exposure? What were some things that worked for you for your son?
Cook was a undersized guy. He spent a lot of time at Louisville's camp, so obviously that was his dream. And that recruitment didn't go the way he wanted it to, so it was a learning experience for him to actually take a step back and evaluate where we're at, and kind of back to the thing that's where you are is exactly where you're supposed to be, and if you don't like it, change it, right? Do something different and grow from it. So for him, I think really having good people around him, being in an organization that cares about you, and having coaches that care about you and will vouch for you and say, hey, you only really need to take a look at this kid, and then figuring out what schools, hey, which ones do we need to be looking at, and those guys help through that process as well. So for him it was everything. The travel ball part of it, and hard for me because I think it's a double-edged sword. I think baseball's really become have and have nots, to be honest with you. But it's the game that's in front of us now. We all have to go play it. So, kind of with the college thing is most of these kids are going to be paying in college to go to college to play baseball. So, the scholarship numbers aren't there. And I guess the college coaches are to the point where, they're okay with it being haves and have-nots, and the kids that can't afford to do it probably can't afford to go to their school anyway. So, maybe that's not what their thought process is, but it's hard for me to believe there's not a little bit of that in there.
That's a great point, and we see it every weekend. I say we see it. It takes a lot of resources to get from Louisville to Atlanta to Indy to all over the country, right? And those that are able to do it ain't always easy. And we're fortunate to be able to do that sometimes. But there's others that aren't as fortunate in baseball, and there's other sports, baseball, softball. I mean, you pick them, right? That competitive youth travel industry is going down that path, and there's fewer and fewer sports that may require less money, right? But it is what it is the game in front of us, and that's well said, Danny. And we're playing with what
the rules that we're given, the scenarios we're given, we kind of have to go that route. One of the things, John, as we're having Danny describe that is, I have a question for him. Do you feel like, and John and I have spoken about this off the air a lot, do you feel like a lot of times high school juniors and seniors have what you might refer to as Division I syndrome? Like, if it's not D1, I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not going to go there. Can you describe, like, of all the people, all the players your son has played with, of all those that are going to move on to the next level, how many are going Division I and how many are going smaller?
So Coop was fortunate in the organization that he played for, the team that he played for. The majority of those kids will wind up in a D1 program. So for those kids, I guess probably if it came down to it and they didn't get picked up by D1, they may not want to pursue the game at the D2 level, just because it'd almost be a hit to their ego. And no matter what, it's hard to tell these 17 and 18-year-old boys to kind of step back from their egos, because quite honestly, a lot of their egos is what's gotten them to the point that they've gotten to. They're ultra competitive, and they don't want to lose. And if everybody around them is achieving something, they think there's no reason in the world why they shouldn't achieve it too. So I do believe there's probably some kids that probably step away from the game because they don't get that D1 opportunity.
Sure, but there's all kinds of guys that get drafted out of the Division II and even III levels, too,
Yes.
NAI, JUCO. I mean,
Absolutely.
we think that's kind of a sad thing that a lot of guys sort of look at it. If I'm not getting Division I, I'm not going. I've seen it too many times, in my coaching career and my playing career too. And one of the things we want to try to do on the show is educate parents, but at the same time, also sort of, it's okay, players, it's okay. You can go D2, you can go D3, NAI.
Absolutely. And if a kid loves the game, the kid will play. There's a place, I promise you, there is a place for you to play if you love the game. I think some of these kids that are D1 or bust maybe don't really love the game as much as they claim to love the game. They love the flash, they love the swag, they love the camaraderie, the team, the teamship, everything that goes along with the travel and everything else. But maybe they don't really love the game, because if they really love the game, they're going to play somewhere.
They might love that social media pop they get when they commit somewhere, or that tag on their profile. No, that's well said. Dan, you mentioned something here a moment ago, and I think a lot of a lot of young adults go through a similar fashion, to where the school that they might want to go to or might want them to have interest in, it just doesn't work out sometimes. I thought that was pretty, it doesn't always work out like you want it to, right? But if you keep at it, it can. And doors open and doors close for a reason. And we see it all the time. We talk about it often. We talked about it with volleyball with Ann Cordes a couple weeks ago.
Well, sometimes it's about a fit, right? Just because you think that's where you want to go, you've got your heart dead set on it. Come to find out, when the time comes, that's not the best fit for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It all happens for a reason, right? And I've seen it firsthand. Good things can happen. Just keep playing the game, keep your nose clean, and have fun, right? And let's have perspective, because this game is finite. Those playing days stop at some point, right? That's all good stuff. And you said something else, Danny. Surrounding your son with people that genuinely care, right? Surround them with good people. My dad always said, if you surround yourself with good people, you'll be successful. And it's our job as parents to oversee that and make sure they're around the right people, right? Because we've seen the other side, unfortunately, too many times. So I think that was a great comment. And, parents, when we're looking at travel ball teams to select, and Russ and I talk about it ever so often, ask the right question. Ask questions, because who knows if it's the right question sometimes, but just be curious and make sure that it is what you think
Hey,
it is.
You can even play dumb a little bit and say, hey, I don't know if this is a good question or a bad question.
I play dumb all the time, Russ.
But that you may find that what's on your mind, guess what? There's about 10 other parents that's on their mind too, and they're just afraid to ask it. No different than when we were in school. All the students are thinking it, just nobody's willing to actually ask it.
If you got any questions for Danny, any baseball questions, any recruiting questions, baseball, whatever, any other sports, text into the PPL text line, 502-437-9680, 502-437-9680, the Pitching Performance Lab text line. And I'm coming to you live and vibrant from the Purnell sponsor microphone, Russ. Does it sound great?
It sounds good.
It's right. It should. All right. We'll be right back after this message. Cool. See, we got the text line.
It's just a bunch of bull crap. Anything else like you want to, like scenarios you want to mention? Like, hey, I always thought my son was going to be a shortstop and he's found a niche at third base, or hey,
I was told not to talk. My wife told me not to talk about my son. I'm not allowed to talk about my son.
Yeah.
How's about what else can we talk about?
We better figure it out.
Talk about
I'm gonna talk about the travel schedule.
yeah, how about the schedule, the tournaments? Like, did you feel like certain cities, certain tournaments had more coaches they're watching versus others that maybe have touted themselves as a showcase, but there really wasn't many people there?
Like I said, we were pretty fortunate and could play with the Canes organization. He was on their B team, and we lived in Atlanta and Birmingham, so it was PBR, PG, and whichever one was having the tournament that week is where all the coaches were. At least all the Southern coaches.
Let's touch on the two sports, because Coop played football too, right? And at a high level for both, and talk about the wear and tear on the body, but also from a mental perspective to change gears, because he went down and played in Jupiter right in the middle of football season. And you're going from football to baseball, and it ain't easy to hit a 90-mile fastball just out after having not seen a pitch for a while. And I know he hit some BP and whatnot, but I like to talk about multi-sport athletes.
Yeah, was he less injury prone because he played multiple sports? Did you see that?
I don't know.
I'll talk about multiple sports. I love,
Sure.
I think it's one of those things where I think if the kid wants it, the kid should do it. Don't try and make a kid. If a kid doesn't love football, don't make them play football. They don't want to. They're not good at basketball. They don't want to play basketball. They want to play baseball, and you play baseball. Who cares? Do
That's
something.
awesome.
Right. No, I think it's good. Definitely take that and run with that one for sure.
But if the kid loves it, kid loves playing football. My kid loves football. He loves going out on Friday nights and acting like ads on football. He loved it. And he loved all the team stuff that went along with it. Parties, and I'm going to talk about it.
No, we won't talk about the
Well,
parties.
camaraderie, with the guys and stuff.
Locker room.
That's the reason why we umpired. He took it to the next level. I didn't love umpiring. We did it to make money. We didn't make our
Russ and I were roommates back in the day in college.
Yeah.
30 seconds, boys.
We umpired to make money, okay? And we didn't love the officiating, but all the guys we met, the camaraderie and stuff. That's really what kept me in it for years after that.
Mhm.
The multi-sport athlete thing also did come into play in his recruitment process. Like the other coaches like that.
Mhm.
Welcome back to the Travel Ball Show with our guest, Danny Smith. You might think to yourself, Danny Smith, I know that name. Well, you may not, but
Hopefully you do not.
he's a dad like the rest of us. Not a celebrity, and although if you're on this show, you might be considered a celebrity after fact. But
Definitely infamous, Danny.
yeah, Danny's a travel ball dad who has lived the life of a supporting parent, helping kids achieve their dreams, and dreams are what they are, and they come to reality here in the next several months. But Danny, talk to us a little bit about playing multiple sports. I know your son played football and baseball.
Yes.
And we see that less and less now with a lot of kids. I've got a daughter who is a multi-sport athlete, and she does a great job at both. And I'm happy that she's able to do that and have fun. What are some of the positives that you've seen firsthand playing multiple sports?
Well, for us, it was a lot of the just a break. Baseball's such a, like I say, and I know I sound like a broken record. Baseball is such a game of failure that kids, I feel like, need to get away from it if there's something that they enjoy. If there's something they love, if there's something that they enjoy, be it football, be it basketball, be it play a tuba, play a guitar, whatever in the world it is, it doesn't matter. Join the drama club. I don't care what it is. But I just feel like you should get away from baseball a little bit. It's okay to train. It's okay to stay with the training part of it and stay with your coaches, hitting, throwing, and doing all the things. But actual gameplay, I just feel like there should be a break there.
And we're seeing a lot fewer breaks than we used to, right? So being able to go to another sport, there's your, not that you need an excuse to do that, but it kind of forces your hand a little bit, doesn't it?
Right. So a lot of coaches you're going to join the drama team and not going to play fall ball with us. Well, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. But so much of this becomes from the pressure from some of these organizations that, well, if your kid doesn't play in the fall, he might not make the team in the spring. And I'll tell you, if your kid plays in the fall and somebody better than him comes out in the spring, he's not going to play in the spring in that organization anyway. So if they're willing to replace you for not playing fall ball, they're willing to replace you if what they perceive to be a better kid comes along.
And that goes back to asking the questions, right? And
we've all met coaches over the years. This isn't a rip on coaches show, but I feel like if you don't get that opportunity to take a break, both mentally and physically, and if it means wanting to do another sport or another activity, any coach that's anti that, really needs to kind of take a look in the mirror and say, why am I really doing this? I mean, you're supposed to be for the betterment of the kids. And, John, we mentioned mental health several times on our show. It's not just about, what you can do physically. If your head's not in the game, especially in a game like baseball, my goodness, you have to give yourself a break and time away from it.
Well, Danny mentioned something earlier around loving the game. And sometimes when you get something taken away from you or you're not doing it as much, that love grows a little bit more so, right? That passion to play, and you miss it, right? So I think there's value in that. But it's interesting to hear perspective on multi-sport athletes. My wife and I were talking about it earlier as well, and you and I were also, Russ. Coaches love it until it impacts their team, right?
A lot of college coaches talk about it. Oh, I love multi-sport athletes and this and that, and that's wonderful. But I would have to say that for the most part, the ones that are going to a really high level are probably, and they play multiple sports, but one sport seems to be the one that they focus on the most.
From a time perspective, we talk about this often. All the sports have gone to year-round for the most part. You can play baseball year-round if you want to. I know there's a tournament every weekend, and heck, there's probably an indoor tournament, softball, baseball, what have you, 2-3 hours from here at this very moment. They stepping away for a little bit and having perspective and downtime. Let them be kids, right? So parents, if you're listening, kids, if you're listening, having the passion to do something all the time is great. It's admirable. But sometimes stepping away will help you to continue going down that path and help you, if you want to play at the next level, help give you the tools to do that, both mentally and physically. So yeah, that two-sport athlete conversation comes up often.
I think you also, you have to know yourself. If you've got a little bit of a nagging injury that you've had since the summer, and it's November, and your team says, "Hey, we're going to go down to Florida this December and play in a tournament," you know if you should be going and playing in that or not.
But you know what? That's a great point, Russ. I think a lot of times, we're seeing kids play hurt more now than we ever have for the multi-sport athlete, because they want to do both and they're going to play through the pain. Now, granted, when we were younger, no telling how many concussions and broken bones we played through, but times have changed. Kids today, they're so busy. I just think they're playing hurt more than they used to, right? That's good stuff. So, Danny, you've also got a daughter that does some competitive cheer nationally. So I can only imagine if it's not baseball or football one weekend, it's going to the gym or picking somebody up or flying to a competition, or whether it's Orlando or Dallas, what have you. So you're on the go all the time.
We are on the go. Kids keep us busy.
Are you one of those cheer dads that does the cheer with the group?
No, I am a very bad cheer dad. My daughter would probably rather I just not show up to most of those, but I show up.
We need to work on that. Hey, we need to work on that. It could be a fact that I know your wife cheers pretty loudly, so maybe she's cheering enough for both of you.
There has to be a balance, and yes, she cheers enough for both of us. So.
We got a season coming up here. What is it, June or January 9th, 10th right now? So about 5-6 weeks. Baseball starts at the high school level in Kentucky. Good vibes around the house?
Oh, yeah.
Coming off a state championship, I'm sure the expectations are there to –
high. Yes, they are high. Got a lot of pieces to figure out and find, but I'm biased, but I think we're the team to beat.
I like where your head's at.
It'll be next man up, Danny. We know it always is.
Well, having been through that, so Danny has an interesting. It's a great story with his son Cooper. Last year, Cooper was fortunate to be on not only a state championship baseball team at the high school level, but also a football team state championship at the high school level. So you don't see that very often, and it's pretty cool that that happened. Going through those rides, you talk about emotional roller coasters. I'm the kind of dad that, and my son and daughter and wife will, they know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be somewhere hiding, watching, and rocking back and forth like Leo Mazzoni, the old Braves pitching coach.
No fingernails left. So is that why you don't have any hair, John?
Dude, I'm telling you right now, I just like to be by myself and watch and understand what's taking place. And being a baseball guy, I enjoy that piece of it, right? Because I'm seeing things that I think I'm the only one that sees sometimes.
I was way more nervous as a parent and a fan watching than I ever was as a player.
I'm telling you right now, state championship time frame, or the tournament last year, it was a nervous wreck. And the kids, though, and we talk about this throughout their playing careers at the youth level. I know Danny's watched his kids do some things in front of a lot of people, large audiences, a lot on the line. Talk to us about the value of doing that over and over again and getting comfortable with it.
No, it's just no stage is too big for them, right? So all of us here in this area are super blessed in the fact that we have one of the best baseball programs in the nation right here, no more than 25 to 30 minutes from your house, right? They put on umpteen camps a year, and I'm not here to push Louisville's camps, but they put on umpteen camps a year. And you can take advantage of being around the best coaching in the nation multiple times a year right here at home. And so they put them out on the field. They're in Jim Patterson Stadium. So is there a bigger stage than that for your kid? Probably not. So take advantage of it and get them out there. And if they do that enough, then whether they belong or not, they think they belong. They think they belong there. They think they're supposed to be on that stage. And some of them are, some of them aren't, and that's okay. If they think they are, they're probably going to be successful.
You know, Russ and I talk about some of the positives of travel ball. Being on the big stage, often that, you know, facing the kid throwing 95 nasty stuff every weekend, at some point it becomes, you get more,
second nature.
you get
Look,
comfortable with it, right?
The first time you
It's-
face 2 on and 2 out, you're up to the plate. Your team's down by a run, and they need you to come through. If the first time you ever have to be in that scenario is in the state finals or the regional championship, you're probably not going to do very well. But when you've been in that scenario tens or 20s of times at the travel ball level against very similar, if not better, competition sometimes, when you are in that big stage game in the Kentucky State Finals, it's old shoe, man. You've done this before.
And you know, Russ, there's a lot of showcases out there, and you can make arguments around money grabs and things like that, and those exist. It is what it is. But I do feel every showcase can bring value from the perspective of being around others, understanding how to calm yourself down, relax, because we all know you perform better when you're relaxed, and just doing it time and time again. I think there's a lot of value that gets lost just from being comfortable. And you get comfortable, parents, by being put in that situation time and time again. To Danny's point, baseball is a game of failure. Are you going to have a great showcase every time? No. But there's going to be pieces from each showcase that I guarantee you can leverage for, whether it be recruiting or to personal best and something to grow from that showcase, right? So I do think there's value in all those showcases. Danny?
Well, I think parents and players both need to realize too. Let's just say the very first time Coach X sees you and you don't do so well, you don't perform well, you don't have a good game. They think that's it for them. That coach is never going to watch me again. If it's a university, whoever coach that you really want to go to, you don't have a great game, you don't have a great tournament. Well, that's it. I'm done. No, that's not how baseball works. There's going to be a tomorrow, and they're going to see you again. I remember back from my little bit of recruitment, coaches were honest. They said, "I saw you last weekend. You stunk it up. I saw you today. They couldn't get a ball past you." They realized that there's going to be ups and downs.
Danny, through the recruiting process, were there some honest conversations that didn't always go the way you wanted to, and conversely, surprised you a couple times in a positive fashion?
No, not for me. I was trying to stay out of the coach's ways, and like I said, if anybody knew who I was, then I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing for my son, which was be quiet and driving to the game.
Parents, I want to stop you right there, Danny. If you've got a player and they're playing these high-profile events, be the dad that Danny and the moms that Danny just described, because the last thing you want to do is have a coach scratch you off the list because a parent's acting a fool in the stands, right? They figure that stuff out. So we're not up here on our soapbox. It's just reality. Coaches are looking at the parents, not as much as the kid, but they're looking at the parents too to see how they act, because it's a good indication as to what the kids are going to act like down the road. And they just don't want the drama, right?
John, haven't you had interviews on other forums you've used, like the Travel Ball Dad, where you actually ask coaches those questions, and don't they say, we absolutely, whether we do it officially or unofficially, we're recruiting parents as well as our players.
Thanks for the shameless plug on the travelballdad.com. And actually, the travelballdad.com was what inspired the Travel Ball show. But to your point, just down the road here, Coach Dan McDonald, I asked him that exact question. And to your point, yeah, they're looking at them as well. And, you know, I shook hands. I congratulated Coach Bianco this past weekend at ABCA on the championship. And I used to love going down to Ole Miss and umpiring baseball, right? I was happy to see him get that championship. But I guarantee you, those folks at Ole Miss, they're looking at the stands too, right? So parents, we got to be on our best behavior. And it is hard sometimes to drop our kids off and take a back seat, but it's something that has to be done. Some do it better than others. Like I said, I'll be in right field, uh, rocking back and forth and praying that good things happen and everybody's safe. But all great stuff right there, guys. So don't forget to text into the PPL text line, Pitching Performance Lab text line. With all the data that they're capturing down there in Lexington, I saw a lot of that data and technology at ABCA. The PPL does it well. That's a good tagline. PPL does it well. PPL text line, 502-437-9680. Text in if you have any insight, questions. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to the Travel Ball Show with John and Russ. We got some great text in there, Danny. We're going to talk about in a second, but want to send some love down to Texas. My son Jake just texted us that he's loving the show. Jake, make sure you're eating your hamburger and your 10,000 grams of protein like you should be. Wish you guys the best down at San Jack, the Ravens. Looking for a fun season this year down in Houston and across the country. We'll be seeing you guys soon, so best of luck to you guys. as well as the rest of the ball players across the country, because college baseball is here.
It is here.
You know, I saw a tweet the other day. Once the college football season ended, now it's baseball season.
First practice, boom.
It's ready to go. But hey, we were touching on showcases a little bit before we left, and Danny had some good thoughts during our break that we wanted to really dive into for the last 15 minutes or so. Talking about check boxes, Danny, tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the measurables, obviously, for the kids, the showcase events, they have to run, they have to throw, they have to hit, right? So, if you don't check the boxes, then you're not going to get recruited. Then the coaches, once you check the boxes, then the coaches will come see. Well, if they want to see you play, then they'll come watch you play. But they're not going to come watch you play if you don't pay the price of admission, which is the sub 760s and the 95 mile an hour exit lows and high 80s, low 90s across the English for the kids that want to play.
And getting them to it gives you that baseline, right? And Russ talked a little bit about you've been dying for someone to say it in that manner, right? It's the price of admission. If I don't have that sub 760, can I get there? Sure, you can. It's called training, right?
Well, there's multiple tools that coaches are looking for. Speed would be one of them. Arm strength another. But the measurables are the things that actually can be witnessed and watched and measured.
And then you have the intangibles.
Then you go and find out, okay, this guy can do this with this. Let's see how he plays. If he has a terrible attitude, slams the bat down when he strikes out, or if he can stretch that receiver for a double or I think one of the things you said earlier down for the show was Danny Boyd is a very really tough kid who plays that way. You wouldn't know that if you just saw how fast he went on his paper.
It doesn't tell the story. And we talked about this before. You're not getting to the big leagues because you run a sub 760. However, it's a piece of the puzzle. And if you can get those college coaches, those scouts to see you play, and maybe you do great, but maybe you don't, right? So let's say you're out there and you're doing your thing, and instead of going 4 for 4, you go 0 for 4. Parents, that is equally valuable in the recruiting process because these coaches, these scouts are looking to see how they handle failure. Are they a good teammate when it's not going their way? When you're hitting home runs, that's great, right? Everybody loves you. But how are you treating your teammates when you're 0 for 4 or you just booted 10 balls in a row? So they're looking for all these pieces. And I will say that if they're coming to watch you, that's a good thing, right? Regardless of how you do, hopefully you do well. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world. So please share that with your players also. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to add one. I remember back in my college playing days, you were already off.
I didn't play anyway.
And I remember going out with some of the guys, including our college coach, to watch our high school regional tournament. And our coach was really interested in a specific player from one of the local teams. And I remember not having a super high thought about how good this player was. But the coach was so excited about it. He had an 0 for 3 night. But one of his 0 for 3s was runner on second, nobody out. He hits a hard ground ball second. He pushes the ball out opposite way. And that runner got advanced to third and it later scored. He said, you know what? He could have tried to hold an outside pitch and get a home run or a double and go for the glory. But he gave himself up for that at-bat. Another at-bat might have been a fly ball to the outfield. Instead of just jogging at the first, he drops the bat and sprints to second base. Actually gives coach a time on the stopwatch that he can measure and write down and go, he knew that guy wasn't going to drop that ball. He wasn't that anyway. That's the type of player he wanted to recruit. I can totally see scenarios where there's 5 or 6 college coaches watching, and when someone goes 0 for 4, one of them might just walk away. But the other ones that are still there, they know that you're going to have bad days and you're going to have good days. And they're still there watching.
And it's hard to remind yourself of that sometimes. And the same is true in life, right? Business. I'm a sales guy. You can't win them all, right? Sometimes you hear no. People remember how you act when they play now. People remember how you act when you go 0 for 4. It's just part of the process. And if you work hard, play hard, and have a good attitude, it all kind of works itself out. So parents, words of wisdom there. And that goes for the showcases and the games, all of it, right? Um, but a lot of opportunity out there if you want to get your kids exposure. Take advantage of that. And in Louisville, there's lots of options. Just get online, do the showcase, Google, and you can find some things to get your kids some exposure. Danny, we're coming up on time here in a little bit. If you could do the journey all over again, is there anything you do different for your kids, either on the baseball side or the cheer side? Is there anything you do different?
I don't think so. They wouldn't be the same kid if we did anything different. Kids need to have some success. They need to have fun. They need to faith, honestly. They're going to in baseball. They're going to in cheer. It happens. but yeah, it's all part of the growing process, and it helps mold the people that they become. Like you said, when things aren't going great, how do you treat people? And when the chips are down and they don't go your way, how do you treat somebody that is a truer measure of who you are as a person?
We talk about let them fail. Russ is the only one of us here that was a private school, high school kid going to St. Xavier in Louisville, Kentucky. Me and Danny are both public school boys, but we had the good fortune to be able to have our kids wear the green and gold down there on Poplar Level. There's some good options in Louisville, don't get me wrong, but one of the things that I took away from that whole experience and made me feel good was that message of let them fail. And not that that was the first time I'd ever heard that, but it makes so much sense. It's so darn hard, though, to as a parent, to just sit back and watch sometimes. But kids learn from failure, and they come back 10 times better, right? But they've got to go through the process, and the process isn't always fun. We got some other cool stuff happening in the coming weeks. We've got Alicia Wolney coming up from Softball Youth, which is owned by Athletics. Mr. Aaron Flaker is involved in that organization, and Alicia's agreed to come on and talk to us a little softball. She's played professionally and helps their softball division thrive across the country with their various events. So we're really excited to have her on. Going to have some other dads. I've got some things up my sleeve that we're gonna get some more dads on here. I'm even contemplating bringing players on, Russ.
I think maybe a couple of female softball players from Ballard might fit into that.
You think you can set that up for us?
We're talking about chances of the league. We are definitely cannot wait for the opportunity to do that over and off of
I forgot about that. So we got 2 state championships to worry about here: softball and baseball. As Russ and Danny do the pound to one another, I'd like to see the Bruins bring it home and Tigers bring it home. That'd be really cool. But throw it out there to the team and see if we can get some players, because parents, it's really if you can get a player to be honest and tell you their experiences and things that they might recommend to other players and parents, right? This show is all about helping players and parents navigate that travel ball journey. And it has its ups and downs, and sometimes it feels like there's more downs than ups. But at the end of it, and there is an end, you look back and all you have left are some videos and some home run balls and kind of reminisce a little
But
bit.
friendships,
Friendships forever. And I will say this, part of that whole finding the travel ball team, they need to interview the parents together. And as a parent, you need to interview the other parents to see if you get along because sometimes you don't. And that makes for a long season. I mean, if you were a parent on the travel ball team, I don't think I'd join Russ.
but as the coach, you're okay with it, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you know the heck out of some baseball, but I don't know if I can drink a beer with you. But so we got some exciting things coming up. We've been fortunate the last couple of days. It's nice weather out, but it'll be snowy and icy here next day or two. Give it a chance. But with these facilities, they're going to get games. And I know Louisville's got some things happening here really soon. But they're going to start off down south and then work their way back up. Are you guys going on a spring trip, Russ, on the softball side of the house?
We take a spring trip to the Fort Walton Beach area.
Okay.
With the girls. We probably play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday kind of thing. Maybe a Thursday morning game, and then we get them the rest of the week with their parents. They definitely go down with their parents, and they're responsible for them.
Oh, they are, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Danny, you got some exciting stuff happening this spring.
Oh yeah, another shameless plug for Sunday baseball here. We are the first team from Kentucky to be invited to USA Baseball's high school championship in Perry, North Carolina.
How many teams get invited that day?
16 teams
Nationwide.
nationwide. It's quite a process, and the coaches have jumped through a lot of hoops and do a lot of work to put this opportunity together for these kids, and they are in for a heck of a ride. We're gonna fly into North Carolina and get a charter bus over to the facilities. The kids will stay on their own in the hotel for the coaches. Parents have to stay away.
That's a good thing.
They'll have charter buses back and forth, so they get a bit of a D1 college experience right there. Last year.
That's pretty exciting. Follow the Tigers as they go to Cary, North Carolina. Is that spring break?
It is actually the week before spring break.
All right.
So I think they're on Tuesday and then get in on Sunday.
Good luck to the guys.
And there's a lot of recognizable teams in that tournament. I know we played one last year with Brother Rice, and it's a who's who of high school baseball around the country. So we're excited to see how they perform. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Coaches are going to have them ready to go. Players are going to knock it out again. All those kids have probably played on that field, and it's going to be like second nature, isn't it? But we got a lot of stuff happening. Check us out on social, thetravelballshow.com. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Mr. Russ McCubbins doesn't run any of it, so I think we're okay.
Not a techie guy, man. I'm just not.
Me either.
But we love him anyway, folks. And have a great week. We'll see you next week on the Travel Ball Show with John Bennett and Russ McCubbins. Take care. Boys.
Awesome.
I told you.